So in this one we're going to see the basis of how to create a lobby room that will also accommodate matchmaking. Now before we do anything inside the editor, you need to go into the services, and that is Windows Services. Okay, it will open this thing over here. It won't show this. You will have to create, I think I need to log out, but yeah, you have to create a project inside the services. Okay, it's nothing really, just hit one of these buttons, or well, basically the multiplayer, as you can see over here. And let's see what this is going to open. It will say that you have to open it, you have to set it up. So click set up project. You basically only have to set up maximum players, okay, for the match, and then you will be done. Of course, there's also subscription plans and stuff like that. Okay, we don't really care about anything this, but this is basically what is going to enable us to use matchmaking inside our prototype, or if you want to have in the final build, if you want to use UNet and have more than 20 concurrent users, then you need to look at the subscription plans they have. Okay, now of course, if your game is heavily based on multiplayer, then well, the best approach will be to create custom network libraries. Okay, of course that is something more probably out of the range of the price range of most of indies. Well, not almost, but especially if you're starting out. Okay, so yeah, you need to think your options. If you want to, I make custom network libraries. Okay, so if it's something that interests you, shoot me an email, but keep in mind we're talking about a lot of hours of work, and of course the price changes to accommodate that. Now back into our multiplayer. Okay, back to UNet. So I'm going to give you the canvas because it has a lot of sub menus and stuff like that, and don't necessarily have to do anything with the multiplayer. It's just how I wanted to set it up. Of course, there's 1,000 ways you can set up a canvas, but I'm going to basically give you this one that has a few sub menus. Okay, I kinda saw some sub menus from Modern Warfare, the new one. So I tried to create something like that, but I kinda made something more modified it a bit, because I wanted to show you how we can also have deathmatch match types. So for example, deathmatch match type. Later on we probably see heists and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to play a lot with UNet, given time of course. Okay, and we will also be able to change maps, change maximum players. We can change also the icons, stuff like that, and we will also have a lobby room that we're going to wait until all the players have joined, and all the minimum players have joined, and then we can do a countdown until the game starts. And for right now we're only going to reach into this place, and until we reach this state where we just wait and players can join, well, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And that's why you see that this is entirely different from what it will actually be in the next parts. Okay, because this we've already have walls of text and walls of scripts, okay, to write right now and to explain. So I figure it's best to just break it into parts and make it just focus with the lobby and the matchmaking for start, and then we should do the rest of it, which is going to the game scene and stuff like that. Now let's talk a little bit about the UI, and basically, as you already know, the way I work with the UI is usually have my buttons, and on my buttons I have on click, and I will basically have a function, a public function that is going to then come in here and call functions from, in this case, from this net manager. Okay, so for example, on the create match, I have the open create match menu. Because it's opening, this will open a new, or actually let's see it before we do anything. If I hit play, okay, create match, join, create match, I get the create match menu. I can change team deathmatch, deathmatch. Oops. I can change the level, although right now there's no level. It will only pass the name, and I can change to a predetermined value of max players. Okay, and if I click create, it's going to create me the match, as you can see over here. Okay, and I'm inside the lobby scene, and I'm waiting. For right now, we're only going to take random numbers as the players, and that is because we want to know that we're actually syncing the name of the players. After we finished, we're going to pass the username, which we write in the profile menu scene from the which we write in the profile menu scene. For example, if I open now a build scene, or a build, not a build scene, we're going to come in here and we will see if it loads. Okay, for right now I have on the multiplayer button, all it does is just loads the scene. Okay, later we are going to add all the nice effects and stuff like that. And if I click joined, you can see I get my lobby room with the settings I've set up inside the game room, and we're going to see them in here. Now the in lobby for right now is just dummy. Okay, since we cannot go anywhere else, we're only in lobby. If we haven't yet created the match, well, the match is not yet created. Okay, so we can't do anything. If I click, okay, we wait till they sync. Now this is using the matchmaking. Okay, this doesn't use the local network, so it has to go to the UNet server and then come back, and that's why you might see delays. So the name of the players, 15 is the player which was before, and 5 it's our player, and you can see that it's indeed synced through both of these. Okay, so that is basically what we want. Till we reach this place though, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And this don't do anything right now, only the back which just going to disconnect you and just throw you to create match or join. So I'm not going to go into each button what it does. Okay, you can guess. Create match opens the create match menu, join opens the join, the search for match. Okay, the menu which is this join list, the list will automatically create all stuff for this, or the matches it finds, and the lobby room is basically this one which has the players, and the buttons, all the back button does something. So we're going to break it up into two scripts. The net manager, which is also it's going to take from the network lobby manager, and we're also going to take to create the net manager UI, which will hook the functions that we have from in here. Now because we're going to utilize the network lobby manager, we're going to need both two new scenes, which one is going to be the lobby scene, which is just this scene, and the play scene, which is just an empty scene, which we're never going to go into this scene right now. Later on, you're going to see how from that scene we're going to load any other level we want, and we're going to play like that. Okay, so this will just be a dummy scene which we will use to load other. Now you can set up the maximum players from in here, but we also change them from script. Okay, the stuff we won't need, for example, minimum players and stuff like that, you can, or maximum players per connection, you can set them up in here. Okay, it doesn't matter. The other stuff we're going to need, otherwise UNet is going to give you, on console errors, you need to set up a lobby player prefab, and it just basically means you need a network identity and a new script which also derives from network lobby player, which we're just going to call lobby player. Okay, and we're going to have this. Now, local player authority. Okay, and let's see. It will also make you, create also a game object that it can create, which supposedly is the prefab you need to have on the game scene, because it wants to automatically handle player creation, stuff like that. Okay, we won't care about anything from this. So we're going to take this. This is just a dummy for now. We're going to change this to have something we want, but you need to populate this. Okay, you need to have this over here, otherwise you're not going to, it's going to give you errors. Now there's still a bug that if you add the scenes over here and save, if you just only add the scenes and this and save, it doesn't actually save. You need to also make something. So for example, tick and untick the auto create player and something else, something that registers as a change. Okay, and then you need to save. Otherwise, as I said, you won't have these scenes and you're going to see errors. If you don't see the errors right now, you will see them the next time you open Unity. This might have been fixed in 5.6, but I'm still on 5.5. I'll see when I actually finish this update. I might go actually to 5.6, but anyway, in either case, just keep in mind there is a bug in this one. We cannot actually fix it ourselves. Okay, we need to dive into the code. So yeah, this is for the network manager, and the network manager, of course, we're going to write it, well, most of it, and the net manager UI. So are the two important things we need to do. Now let's dive into the network manager. Or yeah, before we actually dive into the network manager, let's dive into the network manager UI, because this will work with all the buttons we have. Okay, it's nothing really difficult or something we haven't seen before. This has to do with grids and where you want to create menus. So for example, match list grids, it's the grid that you basically have in your join list that will create all your matches from below over here. Okay, the lobby players grid is the players you have from over here, and it creates them. Create match menu. Okay, all these are pretty understandable. It just opens the menus. The subtitle text is this one, which we change depending on the scene we are. The match UI prefab, it's just a prefab that has settings and changes the name and changes stuff like that for the match UI prefab. The lobby player UI prefab, of course, is the UI prefab, which just has the text and updates the name. And here we have a few lists which basically save the game objects we have inside these two grids. So if we want to delete them or change them, then will be there. Game name input field, it just is the field that has the name of of your game or stuff like that. Of course, it's a singleton, and then on start we basically close all the menus except the multiplayer menu. We change the subtitle text to select because we are we want to select either create or join, and then we basically load our prefabs. Before we forget, let's go and check the match template and lobby player UI, which in this case they are going to be under multiplayer UI resources. Okay, they have a lobby player UI. It just has this text, and the match template is basically, if I go into my join list, my grid, I have it also over here. Basically what it has the text, always basically what the actual text or for the UI element that you want to update. So for example, the match name is this, the match type is this, the current user will be this, and the maximum users will be this. Okay, the status of course is this, and then the map is this. It's just that, and it will basically just change this. The snapshot is basically your match info snapshot, because we can save the entire match. When we actually call, when we are actually searching for matches, we're not getting the actual match, we're getting a snapshot of the match before we join it. Okay, basically the stuff, all the stuff we need to know. So when you are trying to enter it, it's going to check if you actually if there is actually size for you to enter. Okay, and it's going to call on the network manager. You know, it's going to try and join the match. Otherwise, okay, it's not going to do anything. You'll just be again on the join list. You can prompt it to have you know, to throw or delete this game object and stuff like that, so the players are not get confused. Now, network manager UI. Okay, the lobby player UI, it's nothing again. Okay, it all it does, it's this. You're just passing a string and it will update the player name. Back to the network manager UI. If you want, if you click to search for a match, it's going to open, it's going to close the multiplayer menu. It's going to change the subtitle text to join match. It's going to open the match list menu. Okay, it's going to close the create match menu just in case you have it open, and then it's going to call into the network manager, search for match. Okay, and we'll see this in a bit. If you want to create a match, it directly goes to the network manager and creates the match. It doesn't actually create it yet. It just says that it's going to open you the menu for creating. Actually this, I think we are not actually using this. This is the one we are actually using. Okay, and yeah, this we don't use this, so you can delete it. We're actually using this. This will go and directly create a match. We don't want that yet because we have a lot more stuff to do. So for example, we will close all this. We create the match menu, which is basically the match settings, which you can change, you know, match type, users, or stuff like that. And then of course we change the subtitle text to a text, create match. You can make this into a hash, so it doesn't create it, but anyway, we're still in menu, so we don't care. Okay, and then we initialize for a match, which you'll see what this is. And we also changing the game name input field to be what the current match. When we are actually going to create a match, we have a class that stores information about our current match. Okay, it's independent from UNet's match info for right now, until we actually create that match. Okay, this is only on the menu, so we're going to take the name from there and we're just going to input it on the game name input field. Now, open lobby menu. Okay, pretty clear. It just opens the lobby menu. The lobby then, it has its own stuff, which is going to add it by default. Not by default, because we are it's going to automatically create lobby players, because that's how UNet works. Okay, and yeah, we do other stuff from our lobby menu, and then we change the subtitle text to lobby. Let's close all this so that we know we don't confuse ourselves. Okay, update game name, date game type, date game map. We basically take the integer, well, the game name, we just take the actual name that comes from the input field with the game name. Okay, so this is hooked under the name, which is let's find it. Let's close this. If you click to create a match, for example, create match menu. Okay, the input field you have over here, it's over here, and it has well, it doesn't actually have a behavior because it doesn't need a behavior. When we actually click create match, we just take the name from this one. Okay, but over here you're going to add your name. The other ones are drop downs, and if you do not know drop downs, they basically have a list over here, and depending on what you have selected, is going to give you an integer. All we care about is that integer, and then we can translate it into actual data we can use. For example, the game type is going to be translated to the current match type, and because it's also an integer, it's going to basically take that integer and translate it into a match type. Update game map, it's going to take that integer, and for right now it just hooks it in here, and later this will actually reflect to a list which will have the different levels we can play at, okay, depending on also the match type and stuff like that. But for right now, all it does is just saves this one. Update max players, it gets the, it basically just saves the integer from over here from max players. And yeah, let's see. Well, actually, yeah, I think that we actually don't want to use this, and yeah, this is not actually the way we're using this, but this will also work, but you will have to do one more step to convert this information into the actual data, or basically these integers. So we don't need them, so I'm just going to delete all this, but we're going to still keep the name. What we're actually going to use in this case is these three things. Okay, so for example, it's the same idea. We're passing the integer, but for example, instead of doing the change match type directly, adding it into the match type, we want to have a little bit more control. So we're getting our current match from a network manager, and for the match type, instead of adding it directly, we're going to have something more precise. Well, this is the same, but if you want to have a list and if you have a lot more match types, you might just want to do it like this, which has an integer, which has a switch statement, and depending on the integer value, you are returning a different match type, and it's going to be a little bit safer. And yeah, okay, and I say a little bit safer because if you do a revision, or for example, if you add more match types later, and instead of adding this, instead of adding the new match on the end, and if you add it and change the order for this, then that means you are actually changing the entire order from your match for your matches, so you're going to have a few problems there. Okay, so that's why I'm using this, just to be able to, you know, go and edit it in the future. Otherwise, this is just redundant. If you don't want to change it, you can just use this directly. Okay, but the important thing is, of course, we need to update the actual match settings we want to create. Okay, and we do it with this. Now, when we are changing the map, we are going to do the same. Again, we're going to have a list in the future. For right now, it's just this. Change max players. This passes an integer, but the integer we're passing when we're changing the maximum players, it's not the maximum players, it's the values or the index we have on the drop down list. Okay, of course that's not something we want to use, because it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and this is a multiplayer game, so that means we're probably going to have to go with 2, 4, 8, 9, or whatever that is. So for example, what we're going to do is going to take that integer, and we're going to reflect it to what integer its actual, or the actual number of maximum players, and we're going to update the maximum players over there. Integer to maximum players, it's basically in the network manager, and yeah, let's go now, even though we've left one. Okay, if you have different match types and more than 2 in this case, okay, and then you should use a switch. Now we only have 2, so I could have just made an if statement, but as I said, I want to add a lot more in the future, and the more we go on. Okay, so I'm just leaving this so I can edit it later. Okay, otherwise you don't need it. If you're only going to have one match type, then by all means you don't need even an if statement. So basically what this is, if you have deathmatch and you have selected, the player has selected the first entry into the drop-down list, then that will be 4 players, 8 players, 10 players. For team deathmatch, if you want different, okay, I just copy paste the same, and you also need to add a default value so that it returns something in case, well, not basically in case, basically because, yeah, this expects an integer and that path doesn't return something, so that means you're going to get an error if you do not have something over here. Well, I could just do this and update the current match directly, I guess, and it would have been the same, but what I'm doing is I'm getting this one and I'm pretty much assigning it on the current match over here. But yeah, as I said, you could have just done it integer to maximum players. The last thing we have on the network manager UI is, of course, this. We need to call something on the network manager so that it stops the host, stops the client. Okay, and then we basically close all our menus except the multiplayer menu, and then we change the subtype text to select. So this is the setup for the lobby manager, and we're going to see, let's see the canvas, and we're going to see the actual code for the network manager, the matchmaking, in the next part, because this is already too much. And one more thing to note is that your drop downs, as we see them over here, you have to manually populate this list, or the drop down list, okay, to deathmatch, team deathmatch. If you don't want to manually populate this list, then you will have to, you know, change, do it from script, but you will have to keep lists for everything. For example, for the deathmatch, for maximum players, you will have to keep your lists and create them when you start the game. Okay, it's either way it's going to work, since this is not really a dynamic menu. Okay, this is for, you know, for your multiplayer part of the game. So this will pretty much be set up. Map icon, we don't have players, we don't have levels right now, so it's just empty. It doesn't do anything, it just sits there, so you know that you can actually put a map icon, stuff like that. And the behaviors we just seen on the network manager UI, for example, for the dropdown of the type, we hook the match settings UI over here in all the drop downs, and we have a type in here. So for example, so that we know what button this is, match type, map players, and this in turn is going to come on the drop down on the type, and it's going to basically pass that integer into the network manager UI. So for example, change match type, okay, pass the value, finds the type and assigns it. The same for the map, and the same for the maximum players. Okay, the last thing we also should see, let's see, this is the hook that goes on the multiplayer button in the main menu, which all it does is it basically loads the lobby scene, okay, and closes the main menu. And this is on the main menu scene. Let's hit save, doesn't matter. Okay, and not the main menu, the dependency scene. The main menu doesn't really have anything, be careful. For example, we have the main menu UI, not solo menu, main menu. Let me close the solo menu. Okay, main menu, multiplayer. Okay, it just, of course, this is going to change a little bit in you know, in the next parts when we actually finish with all of this. Okay, and this will actually load the multiplayer scene if you also have all the setup for this one. Since we don't right now, it doesn't matter. So let's close all this. Let's close the dependency scene. Let's go back into our lobby scene, which will be inside over here. Oh, and before I forget, if you cannot add the scenes over here also, apart from the, you know, what I said with save and stuff like that, then you also need to have them inside your build settings. Otherwise you won't be able, it won't let you to add this. So this is for the setup that has to do with the UI and stuff like that. Now we're actually going to move on to the next part, which we will actually start writing our network manager. So you know what to do. Like, subscribe if you like to see more then and see them much more earlier than where they go live. You can support me on Patreon, and then you will have access to all the videos I post, and there I post them as soon as they are done. And the other way you can support me, of course, is by grabbing a project from two from Gumroad. So I'll see you on the next part.